Good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from the Rustic log cabin in northern Maine. Welcome to my cabin. Today we're going to talk about sharpening a knife, sharpening a hunting knife, especially. Sharpening a hunting knife is one of those topics that I have shied away from since I began this channel. The reason for that is it's probably one of those topics that's like, what's the right cartridge for deer hunting, or the right rifle? Everybody's got an opinion, and it's either their way or the highway. So rather than to get into that mess of how to sharpen a hunting knife, I've just have shied away from that topic. But this week, in my comments, I have a young viewer that would like to get into the outdoors. And I guess from what I understand in his comment is he would probably be the only person in his family that does this, or starting out. So he wanted some advice on which way to head. Well, as always, my first advice with anything to do with a new person getting into the great outdoors is fire building. Mastering fire building to me is top notch. You shouldn't step off the highway without knowing how to build a fire. Even if you're just learning, at least have the stuff with you to build a fire. And then my next advice to a young person or someone new getting into the great outdoors is purchasing a hunting knife, not a bushcraft knife, especially the way modern sportsmen look at bushcraft knives. I mean, they're either a sword or, you know, I can't even, I'm not even going to go down that road. My idea of a hunting knife, it could be a folding knife, anything 5 inches, 6 inches, a blade is more than enough. I have butchered moose, I have butchered bear, I have butchered deer with knives of that size for 40 years. You don't need a great big sword to manage an animal, or to manage all of your tasks that you're going to be out in the woods with. Son's playing havoc with my camera there, don't worry about it. And that's why I'm not for these great big bushcraft knives. And then the other thing about the modern woodsman is somewhere along the line, they picked up the thought that a hunting knife has to be a surgical knife. You know, like a scalpel that a doctor would use. So sharp that it's just, in my world, that sounds absolutely ridiculous. Especially when it comes to hunting knives and when it comes to axes and hatchets. I cannot tell you how many old-timers when I was a kid, when he'd see me sharpening an axe or a hatchet, don't get that too sharp, boy. Don't get that too sharp. That was just common sense. And nowadays, it seems like every time you turn on a YouTube video, you got to get that hunting hatchet so sharp that a doctor could use it to do heart surgery. Well, that's another one of these myths that's out there on YouTube or out there in the modern society. And I know some people don't like that, but that's what this channel is about. Getting back to like this young guy that dropped me a comment this week. After I told him to get himself a hunting knife, the size, and then I told him to get a whetstone and practice sharpening that knife. I said, you can't hurt it because you can't. When you're first starting out, you're going to make mistakes. That's just the way this craft is. Being an outdoorsman and being a woodsman, you're not going to be perfect right out of the gate, and neither was I perfect right out of the gate. So he was happy with that. He okay, I'm going to search that out. So he went on YouTube and he started looking for videos on how to sharpen knives. And a couple of days went by. I'm gonna have coffee. If you ain't got a coffee, grab yourself a coffee. So a couple of days went by, and then I got another comment from him. He said, I don't want to bother you. And I said, you're not bothering me. That's what this channel is all about. You got a question, I will do my best to answer it. So his question was, I've been all over YouTube, and I keep finding these videos on how to sharpen a knife. And for the most part, the videos, he said, were more like they're trying to sell their product. And that's exactly been my thing on a lot of the reviews and all that. It seems like they're always pushing a product. And sharpening a knife, it shouldn't be about pushing a product. This is the best way. That was his thing. He said there must be a simpler way to sharpen a knife. That was his comment. That was his quotes and his comment. So, and I said, well, you know, I've been pushing off doing this video for a long, long time. So maybe today. So today I've decided, I commented back to him, and I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I said tomorrow, and that's today, I said tomorrow I will do a video on my way of sharpening a knife. And that's the best I can do. I mean, I keep it simple. My channel is always about keep it simple, stupid. When it comes to gear, when it comes to sharpening knives and axes and hatchets, no different, chainsaw. Once you learn how to sharpen a knife, that's probably the best skill that you can give a young person growing up, 10 years old. Hand them a hunting knife and hand them a whetstone and let them figure out, make mistakes. Let them figure out how to sharpen a knife. Because all of what they learn on sharpening that knife, you can take that to sharpening a chainsaw. You could take that to sharpening a saw blade for a skill saw. It's all the same. It's different tools, it's different edges, but the basics are all the same. You want to take a file, or you want to take a whetstone, and you want to put a sharp edge on a piece of metal. That's about as simple as it gets. So now, this is my whetstone. I'll put that so you can see it. You see this? See how it's not square anymore? I've had this whetstone since I was a young teenager. Probably, I would say 13 years old. It has been with me on absolutely every trip. It is in my backpack all the time. This is the stone that I use all the time. And then if I'm at the cabin, I have a finish up stone. But you don't. This is just for taking that. When you sharpen a knife, the last side that you sharpen, you can't see it, but the metal has a tendency to roll over. So if you take a finer stone and just lightly touch that stone at the very end, you can take that little burr off that's on the other side of the blade. So that's, but when I'm out in the field, I don't need that. When I'm out in the field, I have this one, and then I have this one. This one here is about, I would say, 3 inches long by an inch. This one I keep around my neck. This one I keep in my backpack. Why do I keep this little one? Because throughout the day while you're working, it's just like a chainsaw. When you gas up a chainsaw, it's a really good idea to just touch up the edge on the blade. You don't gotta wait until it's so dull that it won't cut butter. So when you fuel up a chainsaw, just touch up the blade. It takes seconds. Takes just a couple of minutes. Rather than the really got to get it good. And it's the same way with a hunting knife. Throughout, at the end of the day or at the end of a couple of days, if you want to take your big stone out, your whetstone, and put a really good edge on your knife, that's fine. But during the day, or while you're skinning a rabbit, or you're working on whatever you're working on, you can take your hunting knife and you can just touch it up really quick with one of these deals. Just a small whetstone, like I said, that's always around my neck. I can pull the thing off, and voila! I can touch up the edge of my knives, and I can also touch up. I got a fish hook here somewhere. While I'm fishing, I can also touch up a fish hook while I'm fishing, and it's the same thing. You'd think, now, granted, some of these laser sharp hooks that you get today, now they are very sharp. But throughout a day of fishing, and if you take them out, the way to test a fish hook is your thumbnail, same way with a knife. If you can, like this, the hook is very dull. See how you can drag it down your thumbnail and it doesn't hook? Well, if you sharpen it, you can't drag that fish hook down your thumbnail and it won't hook. It will definitely hook, because that's a sharp fish hook. And a knife is the same way. You know, a lot of people want to test on paper and all that. Well, when you're out in the field, you're not lugging around a piece of paper. And to me, that's kind of a silly test anyways, because it all depends on how you hold that paper. I can cut a piece of paper with a dull knife if you hold the paper just right. So that's not really a fantastic test. And to boot, do you really need it surgically sharp? The other thing that I have here at the cabin is one of these things. You put your knife in there and pull it down through. I got this in a lawn sale for $1. I'm not exactly sure how old it is, but this thing will sharpen a camp knife slick. Let me tell you, I can take a dull butcher knife, and within a few passes, I can have a really nice edge on there. So that's perfect for here at the cabin. So now I'm going to set this camera up at a different direction, and I'll show you how I work with these stones. Let's see, I had one more stone. Yes, I got one of these hockey pucks. Same thing with this hockey puck. This is what I use for my hatchet. I will use my stone on the hatchet, but I have bigger stones at home. This is just what I have here at the cabin and what I carry around. But this hockey puck is really rough on one side, so if you've got a hatchet that really's got a bad edge, you can use the rough side to get it halfway decent. Then you flip it over and it's got a smooth side, so then you can put a halfway decent edge on your hatchet. But again, the axes and hatchets don't need to be surgically sharp so that you can go in and do heart surgery. That's just not the way it is. Especially if it's a hatchet you're using for splitting firewood. You definitely don't want a surgically sharp hatchet that you're using to split up kindling, because that's the thing that's going to get you. When you're splitting up that kindling, you're going to lose a finger, or you're going to do a really bad cut. And that is experience. That's experience talking. I'm not going to go through this video and tell you I have not cut myself with a hunting knife, or I have not cut myself with a hatchet, and badly at times. That's why I always carry a cotton t-shirt, and I always carry a roll of black tape, electrical black tape, because that's when you're going to get hurt, is when you're playing with knives and playing with hatchets. So this is for that young viewer that wants to know how to sharpen a knife. The first thing you want to do is look at your knife, and you see the angle of that blade. That's how you want to hold it on that whetstone. Take your whetstone in your hands, like I told you in my comment. This is about a 4-inch whetstone. If you take care of these things, I've had this thing since I was a young teenager. Then what I do, you hold that angle of the knife and just walk it down. That's it. Go about 3 times, maybe 5 times. That's 3, 4. That's 5 times. Now flip it over and do the same thing. Hold that angle. And the worst thing's going to happen if you don't hold the angle is you're just going to make the knife dull. But that's a part of learning how to sharpen a knife. Will you get it perfect the first time? Maybe not. But that's how you do it. And then if you feel your knife, you can feel. You can feel it, that's not too bad. Now what you do next, a lot of people want to take and do it on a piece of paper. But take your knife, stand it, and put it up here, and put it on your thumbnail. Now that was just barely. It's fetching up. But I would like it just a little bit sharper. A very dull knife, or if you've got the angle wrong, that when you put it on your thumbnail at an angle, it'll just slide right down your thumbnail. It'll just slide right down your thumbnail, and it won't fetch up at all. When it's sharp, it will. You set it on your thumbnail, and you won't be able to move it at all. And that's more than sharp enough for taking care of an animal, or making feather sticks, or any of that stuff. So I'm going to go just a little bit more. Now granted, this knife was pretty sharp when we started because I keep my knives always in shape. It's one of the things that I like to do around the campfire. Or sitting here in the evening, I'll haul out my knives and put an edge on them. But this is the biggest hunting knife that I own. I don't think you need knives that are big. But that is how I sharpen my knives. I hope that helps you. See, I can't, I'm pushing on that, I can't slide it down my thumbnail at all. So that means that knife is more than sharp enough. Now earlier I was talking about, now you can't see it and you probably can't feel it, but the very last stroke of your knife, it causes the edge to fold over. So what I like to do then is on a different, and you can do it on any smooth stone. It doesn't have to be something like this. I had this given to me a long time ago, so that's why I have it. But then you can just take the edge off that way, and you've got a sharp knife. Now this is one of those beta knives that you've heard me complain about it. I hate it when you see reviews and they talk about good gear and all that. So I purchased this knife because I thought it was a good review and all that. Well, it turns out it wasn't. So now I just call it my beta knife, and that's exactly what I use it for. This is one of those Mora knives. A lot of work to maintaining this knife because it's more like a rifle where you got to keep it oiled all the time. But this knife here, I will push it through this little gadget here quite often because I hate, it has that different kind of a bevel here, which to me doesn't belong on a good knife anyways. But because this is a beta knife, this is what I do on there, and this knife will get very sharp on here. And this, that nail's been used up. If you've used one thumbnail on one knife, you've got to switch over to another one. See, even when running over there, see how that slides down? It still won't hook. You'll probably need the whetstone to get this piece of crap to hook. It doesn't take a lot of passes to get a sharp knife, unless you've got a knife that you've abused and there's absolutely no edge left at all. I've got a buck knife at home that I broke the tip off from abusing it. It took me many hours, many weeks, because it was just a little bit at a time. But after lots of hours of running the whetstone, I was able to put the tip back on that knife. The knife is shorter now, but it has a tip. Yeah, that's sharp enough now. See now, see how it fetches in? So that one's sharp enough. The other thing you see here on the table, this is a chainsaw file. It all works the same. Once you learn how to sharpen a knife, you can sharpen a chainsaw. I hope this helps you in your endeavors of being a woodsman and learning how to sharpen the hunting knife. If you have any more questions, feel free to to drop them. Like I told you in my comment to you, you are not bothering me. That's what this channel is about. I love answering questions, and I will answer them to the best of my abilities. So, like I said, good luck with sharpening your knife. If you guys out there like this, or if you're new to my channel and you like this video, throw me a bone. Subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, and I will see you in the next video.